As of late, I am quite excited about the competition between mid-range smartphones. These phones are trying their best to come at something new. Some give us 4-camera phones, while the others give us an in-display fingerprint scanner, while the others are giving high-end specs at a reasonable price, and there still seems to be a lot more coming. These smartphones are battling it out, and as long as we the consumers get new and interesting stuff, it's quite alright. Anyways, today we have with us the Oppo F9, which has recently made its way into the Nepali market and features something called a Waterdrop display. I have already given you guys a hands-on review of this device, and today I am going a bit deeper into details. As usual, let's start off with the design. The Oppo F9 is quite an appealing device. The design is such that it gives off a shiny appearance of a glass body. At first glance, you might not even notice its plastic construction, but you will certainly feel the difference in your hands. The Huawei Nova 3i takes the lead when it comes to premium feel, but I like what Oppo has done with the gradient back color and the diamond patterns. If only it was a glass body, I wouldn't have wished for any improvement on the design front. I have with me the red version, which Oppo likes to call Sunrise Red, but if you're not a fan of this color, there are other variants available too. As for aesthetics, the power button is placed at the right with the volume rockers as well as the SIM/memory card slot just above it. The button placement is quite convenient, and though the device is large, it's very comfortable to reach all of them. Similarly, at the bottom there's a single speaker grill with the micro USB port beside it, a noise cancellation mic, and not to miss the headphone jack. The back houses nothing but the dual cameras, an LED flash, a fingerprint sensor which is easily reachable, and the Oppo branding just below the sensor. The Oppo F9 feels quite light on hands and is also very comfortable to hold. While the Nova 3i felt slippery, this one gives you quite a grip. But since this is a large device, one-handed usage can be a struggle, especially for someone with small hands like me. A Waterdrop display sounds fancy. Well, it's actually called so because the tiny little notch at the top looks like a drop of water, and this is the smallest notch we have seen after the Essential phones. The small notch houses nothing but the selfie camera and very cleverly hides the speaker grills right above it. Well, there's no fancy dual cameras on this one, but again the question is, do you really need one? But we will get to that bit shortly. Moving on, the device has a 6.3 inches IPS LCD FHD Plus display panel. And as I already said in my hands-on video, it's quite vibrant, has good colors and good viewing angles, which pretty much accounts for a good display experience overall. The sunlight legibility is also excellent as the display is very bright. Also, while watching videos or playing games, the small notch is less obstructive, and same is the case with Instagram stories. The F9 gives you a 19.5:9 aspect ratio with very thin bezels. So viewing content on this one has been a pleasing experience. Another welcoming trait of this device is that it is one of the very few devices to feature Corning Gorilla Glass 6, which is very ambitious for a mid-range smartphone. Now, cameras. Oppo claims itself to be the selfie expert and leader, so we had to put the cameras on a test, and the selfie camera does impress you. It's a 25-megapixel shooter with focal 2.0 aperture. The selfies are bright, vibrant, and pack in good amount of colors. Just look at these selfies. You have a lot of effects for selfies too, like selfie portrait effect, which is purely software. The result is, however, of average quality with slightly inaccurate depth sensing. Having said that, I like the HDR feature, which makes the picture look better in bright environments too. There's also a super vivid mode which helps make the pictures more colorful, but sometimes makes photos look a little too oversaturated. There's a beauty mode that functions okay at first levels, but after that you start looking like a doll. Night selfies are surprisingly well if there is enough light, but as the surroundings get darker, you will notice grains and loss in detail. The AR stickers are there too, like its predecessor, the Oppo F7, but this time there are a lot more choices among the stickers and they're quite fun to use. I compared the selfies of the F9 with that of the Nova 3i and found the F9 selfies to be better in aspects like color and vibrancy, but details are slightly better preserved on the Nova 3i. However, pictures on the Nova 3i look a bit pale when put side by side with the Oppo F9. Overall, I must say that I quite like the selfie experience on this device. Now moving on to the rear cameras, there's a 16-megapixel sensor and a 2-megapixel depth sensor on the dual camera setup. Apart from the pictures having slightly inaccurate color reproduction, other aspects seem covered quite well by Oppo. The pictures appear to be full of life, details are well preserved too. However, in the portrait images, you cannot turn off beautification, which sets me off a little bit. You do have various lighting options for portrait, which sounds fancy, but they're not very impressive. Most of the times, portrait images lose details and the edge detection is not very proper either. The camera does identify objects, which again is a form of AI that most of the smartphones have nowadays. Upon recognizing the objects and scenery, a small icon appears on the top right corner indicating that the AI has successfully identified the object. It will then tweak some settings thereafter, adjusting the colors and so. It is not very accurate though. Like with the front camera, there's a super vivid mode on the back that acts to add saturation to pictures, but I like the normal images better. The HDR feature does work, but I didn't find a lot of difference with the HDR on. Similarly, like the Vivo V11 Pro, there's Google Lens built in the cameras, which is an added feature. Likewise, nighttime shots are okay at best. Like the Nova 3i, there's a Pro mode which is here called the Expert mode. This gives you options to change things like ISO levels, white balance, etc. Talking about other features, the output from the slow-mo feature is just average and results in loss of quality. Also, you don't have a 4K recording feature and videos are recorded either in 1080p or 720p only at 30 FPS, and there isn't any kind of stabilization in them as well, which is very disappointing to say at least. So all in all, the pictures from the Oppo F9 are pretty good, but there is still room for some improvement in the portrait department and video recording. Now moving on to the performance, the Helio P60 chipset underneath had impressed us in the Oppo F7 and the same has been used in the Oppo F9 as well, so the performance is more or less the same. I did not experience any stutters while navigating, multitasking or gameplay for that matter. But what I did is compare the gameplay between the Huawei Nova 3i and the Oppo F9 and found the F9 to have slight edge over its rival. Regular performance between these devices are more or less similar. Have a look at these benchmark comparisons. However, the storage department is where the Nova 3i beats the F9, as you get 4 plus 64GB version here and the Nova 3i offers you 4 plus 128GB version for a lesser price tag. Sure, you can expand the memory using the dedicated microSD card slot too. Now adding on to the performance, there is something called a game space feature which comes handy while gaming. With this feature, you can choose to play games without any disturbances from calls and notifications. Oppo claims that it boosts the gaming performance, but I didn't feel anything of that sort. It's fair to say that Oppo phones always have good and fast facial recognition, but since there is no IR sensor, it's not as reliable. But you can always rely on the fingerprint sensor, which is one of the fastest, and it's really nice to see that it's in a comfortable position. The single speaker at the bottom is decent with less distortions, but at loud volumes you can feel the speaker get a bit distorted. The audio from the 3.5mm headphone jack has average dynamic range and response. As for call quality, I used the NTC and NCell SIM during my review period and had no problems. Similarly, Wi-Fi connectivity is not an issue in this device as it supports 5 GHz network too. Software-wise, you get the Android Audio 8.1 topped with ColorOS 5.2. I've said it always and I will say it again that I am not a huge fan of the UI in Oppo phones or Vivo phones for that matter. The most annoying is having to slide and delete the notifications. I mean, you either have to erase them all at once or go one by one sliding and deleting. But unlike Vivo phones, at least you have the search option in the settings menu. Also, there is no app drawer and you will have all your apps lying on the home screen. Similarly, you have an option to enable or disable navigation keys. I like it when companies provide options and lets you be in control. But the absence of LED notification lights is disappointing. It is something that I need and sadly the Oppo F9 does not have it. I guess the Waterdrop display has its own shortcomings. There are also gesture features like many phones have, so nothing new in that department. Now, the most marketed part by Oppo this summer, the battery. The Oppo F9 has a 3500 mAh battery coupled with its own custom VOC fast charging support. You get a 5V 4A charger that helps you gain a charge of 55% in around 30 minutes. The battery endures pretty well too. There are various power saving modes that help you make your battery life better, but I haven't had the necessity to use one as the battery is very enduring in itself. During my normal usage, which includes social media and gameplay along with work stuff and a lot of making calls, the battery gave me a full day support with some charge left even after. So for normal use, the battery lasts for a little more than a day. The presence of a micro USB is definitely a bummer here, but I think fast charging support covers for it anyway. Although a USB-C would have felt nicer. The Oppo F9 is definitely a good value for money, at least in Nepal. In India and other parts of the world, you can get the Poco F1 or the Honor Play for a much lesser price tag. But since these devices are not available in Nepal, the Oppo F9 is a good package overall with good performance, excellent battery life, a decent set of cameras, good design, and a 20-notch display. Yes, the UI is something that I didn't like, but I think it's a small sacrifice you have to make. If you're looking for a better design option or maybe one with a more storage capacity, you may also consider the Nova 3i. Otherwise, what you get more in the Oppo F9 is fast charging, Gorilla Glass 6 protection, and 5 GHz Wi-Fi connectivity. Other aspects are more or less the same. So that was our full review of the Oppo F9. Do subscribe to our channel and hit that bell icon because we're coming up with a full comparison video between the Oppo F9, the Nova 3i, and the Vivo V11 very soon.